What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world, built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
Andrew Orlowski, and he's a writer for the Register and a lot of other big publications over in England and around Europe. You can just Google his name and find out more about his writing. Okay, I mean, break down what's happening, what's really behind this, and then let's expand into your criticism of the climate change crowd. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is to be honest, I'd love to hear what your listeners make of this attempt to kind of be ventriloquists in the law courts on behalf of animals. I find it a little creepy in a couple of respects. As I said, it kind of diminishes the idea of what humans are once you start idealizing animals. And I went over to the PETA site this week, and they've got a campaign to get everybody to call fish sea kittens. Now, I just find that's pretty
It's re-education,
notion.
It's mind control, but not because they want to treat animals better. And you break this down, it's so the bureaucracy can outvote the people. Explain that.
Well, I think with guys like Cass Sunstein, I don't think they're bad people, but the only way they think is they naturally think of regulations as a way of prohibiting people from doing something they don't like. And I lived in the States for a few years. Coming back to Britain, you have a party in power which has kind of given up on politics. It doesn't know what it's doing, so it regulates. We have a weird, peculiar problem. 2/3 of the legislation, the regulations that are passed in Britain, are never put before Parliament. Some bureaucrat stuffs them out somewhere as they're called control orders, ministerial orders. So people don't discover them for years.
Well, you remember the case in New York about 12 years ago where the rat was eating the guy's tomatoes, so he beat it to death, and they arrested him?
Ah, no. Well, I mean, this just gives, law enforcement and bureaucrats something to do, I think. It's it's crazy.
But, I mean, this shows us where Obama's coming from, though, that this is the guy who's going to put in charge of regulations.
Well, I don't know. Obama seems like your previous distinguished guest KRS once said. Obama's a pretty smart guy. I think with issues like this, and maybe even with climate change, he knows these are stinking policies everybody's going to hate. I think he's going to keep a real big distance from it.
But the point is that this is the mindset of the people that he's bringing in.
Yeah, how do you say it? They're legalistic. They kind of they're the guys who would argue how many angels will be on a pin, but they won't know what a pin's for. They're really kind of it's like a different caste of people, and I come across this all the time. I think this is a curse of being a constitutional lawyer. I guess you spend 20 or 30 years in academia debating really abstract things, and the law just becomes an instrument of achieving political success. It becomes a shortcut. Now, to me, that kind of diminishes the idea of democracy. Hey, if you've got a good idea, put it out to the people, treat people intelligently, and use the democratic route.
But what about the United States, where they're using the Patriot Act on thousands of non-terror-related cases, including a woman spilling her Bloody Mary?
Well, I missed that story. What happened there? Do you want to recap?
She was on the airplane. The kids knocked it over. She spatted one of them on the leg. And then it said in the L.A. Times, it said, not even cussing, but arguing is an act of terrorism. And so she's now been charged with terrorism under the USA Patriot Act and isn't being given due process.
Jeez. Well, I've got a funny little detail for you. The Metropolitan Police have defined one of the functions of protecting the public from terrorism.
Well, stay there. Let's hear about it in 1 minute. Back in 1 minute.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
Andrew Orlowski is our guest. He writes for one of my favorite publications, The Register. Check it out online. Just Google The Register. You can't miss it. Or whattheregister.com.co.uk. Okay, we got 4 minutes left with you, sir. Then, folks, I'm coming back with a bunch of news and your phone calls for the balance of the transmission. With a lot happening, your chance to respond to the coronation of Lord Obama and a lot more. shifting gears, it's the same thing they do when they say the polar bears are endangered, they're threatened by global warming, and they say there's a consensus, every scientist says it's real.
Yeah, I mean, I take it's it's pretty crazy over here in Europe. If you even publish a contrary point of view, you get heaps of stuff poured over.
They're trying to make that illegal. They're trying to make that illegal. But you were telling a story. I interrupt. It's an insane show, sir. That's how I operate. I'm sorry.
No. That's cool.
Going back to the police in London, I'm sorry.
I just figured this might amuse your readers. One of our guys got hold of the police operating manual for... it's kind of complicated, but it's part of the stop and search. That's part of the Terrorism Act. And they put in a word that... this is advice for the police. It is important that officers take out every opportunity to deter and disrupt terrorist operations, but they added the phrase, and provide public reassurance. I just thought, right, okay.
Oh, listen, that happened to me in London. Two guys that work for me in London, it happens to them. They get put in these terror databases. But going back to the helter-skelter interview here, going back to, that's the same thing, saying now groups or governments or individuals will represent animals and that their vote will count as more than the rest of us. That's the same thing with the polar bears. They get to then take control governmentally of the entire, area of the pole, claiming it's for the polar bears, has nothing to do with them.
Well, I've got a kind of, I've looked at the subject, and I mean, Alex, my position is I'm an agnostic because I look at all the arguments for what might be causing the climate change, which changes all the time, and I haven't seen a really strong scientific case from anyone. So that's a good position to be in, I think. But what I see is the kind of relentless background of you can't do certain things, that we're all doomed, and certainly Obama's other scientific policy advisor is this guy who predicted catastrophes for America and the rest of the world every few years. I can't understand the mentality of people who realize, the world is kind of okay. It could be better, but we are not facing an environmental catastrophe as far as I can see. If there is one, it's not one we're going to be able to do very much about.
Well, if we do have one, it's going to be genetic engineering or nuclear weapons. It's certainly not the climate change. We have seasons, we have ice ages, we have Iberian maxims. It goes up and down.
Yeah, but I think there's a subtle kind of background to all this, is that it makes us feel bad about almost everything we do.
Yeah, it's to make us feel like we're bad, humans are evil. Sorry, go ahead, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, it makes us think that resources are limited, and to me, that's a crazy idea. If you look around you, almost every resource we have has been created. We're going to be okay as long as we keep inventing stuff and making sure we can all get hold of it. Uranium was no good to a caveman. That's a great example.
Absolutely. Well, do you have a private website or someplace people can see all your writings other than the register.com?
Yeah, they can go to andreworlowski.com, and then they'll find a heap of stuff. It's a blog format, and I welcome email and comments. Well,
I've seen your writing for years, and then I want to have you back for an official maiden voyage for a full hour where you actually have a
great, Alex. Sure.
Because your wit and the different angles you cover things. I agree with about 95% of what you say and do. The other 5%, you're just a really interesting fellow, and we put your website up on screen. Put it back up on screen.
Great.
You bet. And we'll talk to you in the near future. I know you're going to be busy coming up the next few months, but after that, promise you'll come back on.
I'd love to be back. Thanks, Alex, and all the best. Take care.
Hey, thank you. Take care.
Everything we said came true. Everything we've done's been right.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold for your IRA? The financial industry refuses to recognize the value of real hard assets for your retirement. The truth be told, gold and silver has outperformed paper investments like stocks, bonds, and CDs, yet no word about IRAs. Perhaps the financial institutions want to maintain control of your assets by keeping you in paper. If you'd like to take a look at gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low return on your paper investments. Call 800-686-2237. Make sure that you secure your future. Call 800-686-2237. That's 1-800-686-2237. 2237.